The moment Brandon opened his eyes, the world felt wrong. His head was heavy, but his instincts were sharp. Across the sleek obsidian desk sat a woman with ice in her eyes, Anna, his fiancée. She looked at him like he was an inconvenience. In her hand was a document with red ink already marked across the signature line. "Sign it," she said coolly, sliding the share transfer agreement toward him. "Then we can talk about the wedding." He blinked slowly, and then it hit him like a freight train. This wasn't his world. He had read this scene before. A flood of bullet comments blurred across his field of vision, like glitching code from another realm. Here it comes, the tragic scene. Simp CEO gives her everything and dies on the rooftop. She cheats, he forgives, she regrets. Classic. Only when you fall does she rise. Sign it, king. This wasn't a hallucination. This was a novel, and he had transmigrated straight into the role of the most pathetic male lead ever written. The kind that gave up his company, his pride, and eventually his life, just to make the woman he loved feel moved enough to regret losing him. But this Brandon wasn't some tragic simp. This Brandon had read the ending. He glanced down at the contract, then up at Anna, whose smug expression dripped with manipulation. She leaned back in her chair, arms folded like she already owned him. He's gonna sign, he always signs. Watch this fool give it all away. She needs to awaken, let the man jump. Brandon smiled, not the weak smile the original host wore, but something cold, something surgical. He picked up the contract with both hands, then ripped it clean down the middle. The paper shredded with a satisfying crrrk as gasps echoed around the boardroom. A few assistants in the back flinched. Even Anna's eyes flickered, and then his hand moved like lightning. One sharp smack across her face. Desart. Sound of flesh hitting flesh cracked louder than thunder in the silence. Anna froze, her cheek flushed red in an instant. Wait, what? He hit her? This wasn't in the script. Director, rewrite now. Brandon's voice was low, but every word was carved from steel. You think I'm the simp from your story? He said, leaning forward, staring her down like a god descending through fiction. You think I'll jump off a rooftop so your heart can flutter with regret? He stood. Everyone in the room instinctively shrank back. You want to follow that trash script? Then burn it. Because I'm not dying for a woman who doesn't even know what love is. I'm not sacrificing for a coquette who treats betrayal like foreplay. Anna trembled. She looked around, like someone waiting for the cameras to stop rolling. But no director yelled cut, no audience applauded. What show is this? Yo, this just went off script. He's rewriting the novel live? Brandon walked past her, tore the blinds open, and faced the stunned employees watching from outside the glass. Call security, he said calmly. Tell them Miss Anna is no longer my fiancée. And then, just before walking out the door, he added, tell them I'm back. Brandon didn't storm into the next day with fists blazing. That would have been too easy, and too impulsive. The old Brandon might have cried after tearing the contract. He might have begged for Anna's love, even after the slap. But this Brandon was fully awake, fully aware that he was now living inside the twisted skeleton of a tragedy, one where the man always lost, just so the woman could weep pretty tears on a rooftop and earn her redemption through suffering. But this time, no one would be dying for Anna's enlightenment. Brandon played it slow. He walked into his 58th floor office like he owned the world, not because he was pretending, but because he actually did. The company, Wang Group, was massive, a publicly listed conglomerate with hundreds of employees, tech assets, and global branches, and yet the original Brandon, despite holding the largest share, was a joke within his own walls. People barely made eye contact with him. The receptionists giggled behind his back. His own assistant took coffee orders from Anna instead. And Anna? The moment she'd been promoted to vice president, she stopped hiding her arrogance. She arrived late, micromanaged entire departments like a dictator, and walked around like she was the queen of the company Brandon had built. And worst of all, she was now treating Benjamin, a so-called intern, like her personal VIP. Brandon watched it unfold with a calculated silence. Benjamin wasn't even subtle. He brought iced coffee to Anna's office twice a day. He stayed long after office hours. When he got a cold last week, Anna cancelled all her meetings just to bring him soup in a custom thermos. The original Brandon, he had once bought Anna a limited edition Hermes handbag after she sneezed once in front of him. And when she asked for it back to re-gift to her best friend, he actually said yes. Pathetic. This time, Brandon didn't move like a wounded animal. He moved like a man loading his gun slowly, one bullet at a time. He began collecting documents, employee movement logs, financial irregularities, unusual transactions tied to Anna's division, unapproved budget approvals signed under pressure. All of it led back to her. Anna had embezzled funds under the excuse of brand alignment. Over 6 million yuan had quietly vanished into external consulting, luxury car leases, and high-end dining, each tied to accounts indirectly connected to Benjamin. Brandon said nothing. Yet. And then there was Rebecca, the legal advisor who once sat like a silent statue at every board meeting. The old Brandon never even looked her way. But the new Brandon saw her instantly, and remembered her role in the novel. In the original storyline, Rebecca had been the only person to defend him after his death. After he jumped. After Anna realized she'd loved the wrong man. After she fell to her knees sobbing on the same rooftop where he fell, Rebecca had come forward with confidential documents exposing Anna's fraud. Too late, of course. By then, the shareholders had shifted, the narrative had spun, Benjamin had fled with a different heiress, and the novel ended with Rebecca visiting Brandon's grave. Not this time. Brandon began including her in meetings, small ones at first, then the big ones. He gave her confidential files to cross-check, not to Anna's assistant. He asked for her legal review before signing any capital expenditure. Rebecca, always calm, didn't flinch, but he noticed the faint shift in her posture, the slight raise of an eyebrow when he called her into his office personally. She was watching him now, too. She hadn't yet asked why he'd changed overnight, why the man who once handed over a luxury watch to Benjamin as a gift of trust now moved like a shadow king preparing for war. But she was sharp, she would figure it out soon. Brandon wasn't worried. In fact, he was counting on it. Each morning, Anna strutted into the office like a starlet on a runway. Her outfit screamed power, her heels clicked across marble floors like declarations of war. She still thought she controlled the narrative, still thought Brandon was embarrassed about the slap and would come crawling with apologies, flowers, and share certificates. In fact, she'd begun using Benjamin more openly, holding his arm at company dinners, letting him sit in VIP chairs reserved for executives, even letting him enter Brandon's own office to drop off files. It was all a performance. But Brandon, he was the new director now. And this story wasn't going to end the way Anna expected. The best stories didn't. The office buzzed with forced calm, but Brandon could taste the tension. It started the moment Benjamin stumbled into the building with a dramatic hand pressed to his cheek and glassy eyes that screamed, "Professional victim." Anna was right behind him, striding like a hurricane disguised in silk. By the time they barged into Brandon's office, 3 assistants were already whispering, 2 interns had pulled out their phones, and bullet comments lit up across Brandon's vision like digital vultures. "Here it comes, the slapgate. He hit the intern, didn't he? He's done. Brandon's going to lose everything again." Benjamin's voice cracked as he started his performance. "President Wang," he said, trembling just enough to earn sympathy from the room. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I don't know what I did to deserve being struck." He turned his face slightly to show the red imprint on his cheek. Gasps. Right on cue. Anna's face twisted into righteous fury. "Brandon, what is wrong with you? He's an intern. Are you really this insecure?" Brandon didn't respond. Not yet. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for me?" she snapped. "The board already thinks you're unstable, and now this? I can't cover for you anymore." She pulled out a familiar folder, the one she'd used once before. The share transfer agreement. "This is your last chance," she said, voice low, lethal. "Publicly apologize to Benjamin, kneel if you have to, or sign this and transfer your shares to me. Then I'll deal with the fallout." The bullet comments surged again. "Classic. The threat ultimatum. Let's go. He's cooked. Just hand it all over and jump." Anna looks so justified right now. 10-10 acting. Brandon exhaled slowly. He stood from his chair, walked around the desk. His footsteps were steady, measured. Benjamin tried to flinch back, too late. Slap. Brandon's and met Benjamin's other cheek, loud, sharp, deliberate. The office gasped, again. "That's for lying." Anna's mouth dropped open. "Brandon, what the hell?" Slap. This one landed clean across her face, not with rage, not with chaos, but with cold, surgical precision. That's for treating me like a fool. Gasps turned to stunned silence. Brandon turned to the lapdog assistant who had shadowed Anna for months, the same one who had passed along every coffee order and backhanded memo. "You're fired," he said flatly. The assistant opened her mouth to protest, until Rebecca appeared at the door holding a tablet. She didn't speak, just tapped the screen and turned it toward the crowd. The screen played crystal clear surveillance footage. Anna and Benjamin in the underground parking lot, kissing. Laughing. Benjamin lifting her onto the hood of the limited edition Bentley. No sound, just betrayal in 4K. Someone choked in the background. "Oh my God. They were in the parking lot? LMA caught in 4K. Anna's face drained of color. Benjamin looked like he'd been caught urinating on the Mona Lisa. Brandon walked back to his desk, calmly straightening the cuffs of his shirt. "You want me to apologize?" he asked, voice sharp as glass. "To the guy who's been fucking my fiancée behind my back while I pay both their salaries?" He picked up the share transfer agreement, tore it straight down the middle, and dropped the pieces into the trash can. "Wrong story," he said. "Wrong script." He looked around the room at the stunned staff, most of whom had never seen him raise his voice, let alone tear down the company's queen in public. "I'm not the simp CEO anymore," Brandon said. "I'm the guy who's going to clean this damn house." Anna's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her hands trembled. Benjamin looked ready to cry again, but this time, no one believed it. Rebecca stepped forward. "The legal department will deliver formal termination letters and breach of conduct notices within the hour," she said calmly. Brandon nodded to her. "Send copies to HR and the board." The crowd began to murmur, low, uncertain, electrified. "Is this a redemption arc? No, this is a rewrite. President Wang just went from simp to savage in one board meeting." Anna took a shaky step forward. "Brandon, this isn't you." He turned slowly, eyes colder than she'd ever seen. "You're right," he said, "that Brandon died the day he believed your tears were real." And then he walked out, leaving silence, shattered pride, and the wreckage of a narrative that would never follow the script again. Brandon stood in the hospital corridor, hands in his coat pockets, watching a nurse adjust the IV drip beside an unconscious old woman. Anna's mother. She looked frail, her lips pale, her breath shallow. Her medical chart hung from the end of the bed, like a reminder of how much life cost when you had none to spare. Brandon said nothing. The original Brandon, the one who came before, had sold off a block of company shares just to cover the import medication this woman needed to survive. He had even pawned his grandfather's cufflinks, a last memento from the only person who ever believed in him. And for what? Back then, he remembered Anna clinging to his chest, tears soaking through his dress shirt. "I don't want to lose her, Brandon. Please, I don't know what to do." He had believed it, every trembling word, every shaking breath. But now, he knew better. The tears had been real, the fear had been real, but the gratitude, that had always been negotiable. She didn't love him, she loved what he could solve. Brandon stepped out of the room and walked down the hall in silence. Nurses passed, patients passed, the world moved on, unaware that he had once bled silently for a woman who used pain as leverage. And Anna? She was posting soft-lit couple photos with Benjamin on her private WeChat moments. "My support system. He stayed up all night with me at the hospital. Grateful for this man. #true love." The captions made him laugh. Benjamin hadn't paid a single bill. He didn't know what medication Anna's mother was on. He probably thought morphine was the brand name of a handbag, but Anna didn't care, because the story she wanted was one where she was adored, she was supported, and Brandon was the footnote. He lit a cigarette outside the hospital doors, didn't even smoke it, just held it, like a relic from a life where habits could fill voids. A soft chime on his phone broke. The stillness, a message from Rebecca. No words, just a PDF attachment. He opened it. Internal financial records, high-level expense audits, irregular reimbursements, every line linked to Anna's approval ID. The numbers didn't lie. Over 8 million yuan funneled through shell vendors, dummy consulting services, and client development trips that always ended in luxury resorts. Brandon traced the paper trail with surgical focus, like a man sharpening the knife he'd use later. Rebecca sent another message. She's preparing a new expense claim, another brand collaboration. Same pattern. Brandon replied with one word, good. He wasn't going to stop her, not yet. Let Anna keep digging, let her smile, let her flaunt Benjamin like a trophy boyfriend on borrowed time, let her think the world still spun in her favor, because this time, he wasn't going to stand there while she begged at his feet with tears and desperation. No. This time, he'd drag her. Back at the office, things had shifted. People stopped laughing behind his back. Assistants stood straighter when he walked past. Meetings were shorter, colder, more focused. Brandon no longer played the agreeable fool. He issued commands, and they obeyed. Anna strutted in like nothing had changed. She made eye contact with him in elevators, flashed the same pout she used when asking for a $5 million budget increase for PR. Still mad? She teased once, gently bumping his shoulder. It's been weeks, Brandon. I thought we were past that little misunderstanding. He smiled. Of course. She giggled. Good. Benjamin's planning something for my birthday. Maybe you'll come this time. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Because later that day, he approved a request, anonymously, to replace the HR director with someone from corporate legal. A silent reshuffle, one Anna wouldn't notice until it was too late. Rebecca walked into his office later with another folder. Transfer fraud, she said quietly, placing it on the table. From the development fund, she forged your e-signature. Brandon didn't flinch. That's the third time this month. I can file the report. Not yet, he said. Let her think she's winning. Rebecca paused. You really want her to hang herself? No, he replied calmly. I want her to build the scaffold first, and I want the whole company watching when she steps onto it. She said nothing more, just gave a slight nod and left the room. By that night, Anna and Benjamin were at a rooftop restaurant, wine glasses clinking, a rented photographer hiding in the shadows. Brandon saw the photos before they were posted. He had eyes everywhere now. Look how happy they are. Poor Brandon, wonder what he's doing while they toast to their new start. He was watching, he was always watching, but not with jealousy, with purpose, because the man Anna thought she was humiliating was the one quietly dismantling her castle brick by brick, floor by floor. Let her keep the illusion. For now, the university gala was meant to be a celebration of talent, scholarship, and clean ambition, but the moment Benjamin pulled up to the marble entrance in Brandon's limited edition matte black Pagani Huayra, the entire narrative shifted. He revved the engine for no reason, again, loud, obnoxious, attention-seeking. Anna stepped out of the passenger side like she was stepping onto a red carpet. Pearl white heels, champagne silk gown, her arm wrapped tightly around Benjamin's. Flashbulbs went off before the valet could even open his mouth. A crowd formed within seconds. Phones were out. Journalists, students, even sponsors turned their heads. Isn't that President Wang's car? No way, wasn't that car custom-built overseas? Why is the intern driving it? Anna smiled through the whispers, tilting her head like she didn't hear a thing. Benjamin, meanwhile, soaked it in. He adjusted his cufflinks 3 times before reaching into his coat for his RSVP badge, then held Anna by the waist as they entered the gala hall, paparazzi trailing behind like obedient dogs. Brandon didn't attend, he didn't need to. Because 12 hours earlier, he'd already seen the entire plan through a quiet surveillance feed from the garage. He'd watched Benjamin input the code Brandon had deliberately left unchanged. Watched Anna nod in silent approval. Watched the two of them climb into the car like it was theirs to flaunt. And then he did what the old Brandon never would have done. He called the police. Not a bluff, not a threat. A cold, signed report filed under motor vehicle theft, with legal proof of ownership, time-stamped video evidence, and the license plate already flagged at all active checkpoints in the city. And that wasn't all. Brandon had his tech department quietly link the car's onboard camera feed to a private server. Within minutes, the footage was trimmed, edited, and then leaked. Not to social media, not yet. He waited. He let Anna and Benjamin enjoy their evening. Let them pose for photos. Let Benjamin sip champagne and talk about networking. Let Anna pretend she wasn't clinging to borrowed wealth. Let them believe. Then, at 9:47 p.m., precisely as the university president began his speech, the double doors burst open. 3 uniformed officers strode into the gala hall, gasps, whispers, then shouts. Benjamin Ito, one of them barked. Anna Liu? Everyone turned, flashbulbs stopped, music cut out. Benjamin blinked. There must be some mistake. The officer pulled out a printed document and read the case number. This vehicle was reported stolen at 7:14 a.m. You are hereby under investigation for grand theft auto and public fraud. Come with us immediately. Anna turned pale. Benjamin started to stammer. Wait, no, it's not theft. We know the owner. The officer didn't even look up. Then he'll clear it, if he wants to. Anna's voice cracked. Please, just wait, we can explain. They were both handcuffed in front of the entire university elite. Students recorded everything, professors whispered, the dean excused himself to avoid being photographed in the same building. Wait, he called the cops? Bro, what? Brandon's not simping, he's swinging. This ain't a romance novel anymore. This is a revenge thriller. At exactly 10:03 p.m., Brandon's server leaked the in-car footage. Anna leaning into Benjamin, giggling. Benjamin holding the wheel like a trophy. And the moment he said, he won't do anything, he's weak, he always forgives. It went viral in 6 minutes. At 10:21 p.m., Brandon's phone lit up with a call from the precinct. Anna. He stared at the screen for a moment, then answered with dead silence. Brandon, her voice was rushed, desperate, please. It was a misunderstanding. We just took the car to the gala. You know how Benjamin is. It was a miscommunication. Can we just, click, he ended the call. No explanation, no patience. Just one word texted to Rebecca, Sue. He said Sue, not forgive, not listen, Sue. President Wang is cold, I love it. She thought she could charm her way out of this. LOL. Anna tried again, 2 calls, then 5, then 10. He blocked the number. The next day, news outlets picked up the story under the headline, Intern and Vice President arrested in luxury car scandal, CEO refuses to comment. Brandon didn't need to comment, the footage was enough, and the city had already chosen sides. The ceremony was being live-streamed from the grand ballroom of the Tianlan Hotel. Ornate chandeliers glittered overhead, a string quartet played a soft romantic waltz, and white rose petals were scattered down a runway that cost more than most annual salaries. On camera, Anna stood beside Benjamin, wearing an imported designer wedding gown, hand-stitched crystals catching the light. Her makeup was immaculate, her smile carefully restrained to look noble, not desperate. The live-stream chat exploded with sycophantic praise. Queen energy for CEO to husband downgrade, but she made it look expensive. Honestly, Benjamin is glowing, upgrade secured. But Brandon wasn't in that hotel. He sat alone in his study, wrapped in shadow, a half glass of wine untouched beside him, watching the feed on his private monitor. Not because he missed her, not because he cared, because he had planned this moment down to the second. He hadn't just allowed the wedding to happen, he had orchestrated it. It was the final act of a script only he could see. Across the screen, the officiant raised the mic. Do you, Benjamin Ito, take Anna Liu to be your lawfully wedded wife? The ballroom doors burst open. A woman in a soft pink maternity dress staggered into view. She was shaking, crying, pregnant. 6 months along, at least. Maria. The camera tried to cut away, but someone backstage must have hesitated. The live stream froze just long enough for the audience to see everything. The bump, the tears, the raw betrayal on Anna's face. Brought a baby to a wedding. No way, she's pregnant? How's that karma taste, Anna? I need popcorn. Benjamin went pale. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Maria pointed a trembling finger straight at him. You promised, she sobbed. You said you'd take responsibility. You said you'd tell her. You said, you loved me. Guests gasp. Ed. The crowd turned, phones rose like a sea of judgment. Benjamin stammered, Maria, this isn't the place. Anna snapped. You told me she was crazy. You said she was lying, she screamed. Maria shook her head violently. We were together for 2 years, you left me the second she offered you a car and a title, and now, you're marrying her, with our child on the way? Benjamin reached out to her. I panicked. I thought, Anna had more power, this was just for stability. Maria, please. Slap. Anna's palm cracked across his face. She didn't even wait. Another one followed. Another. She was sobbing now, incoherent, mascara running like war paint. You liar, you used me, you humiliated me, you promised me a life, you let me plan a wedding for this? He reached for her. She shoved him so hard, he crashed into the floral arch behind them. The officiant dropped his clipboard and backed away. Brandon watched without blinking. It was better than he imagined. Anna fled the stage, her heels snapped under her feet. She grabbed fistfuls of her gown and ran, shoving through guests, ignoring photographers, screaming for the valet to bring her a car. She didn't go to her mother's. She didn't go to her brother's. She didn't go to Benjamin's apartment. She went to him. Brandon stood by the tall glass doors when the gates buzzed. His butler appeared. Miss Lou is outside, he said. She's kneeling. Brandon didn't flinch. Let her wait 10 minutes. Then he poured himself a glass of deep red wine. 10 minutes later, he stepped outside. Anna was on the ground, dress stained, hair half fallen from its designer pins, eyes red and puffy. She looked up as he approached. Brandon, please. She choked. I didn't mean any of it, I swear. I thought you didn't care. I wanted to see if you loved me enough to stop it. It was always about you. He looked down at her like a man watching an insect try to rewrite history. You wanted drama, Brandon said, his voice calm. Now you're the main act. And then, without flinching, he poured the entire glass of wine over her head. She gasped, shocked, shaking. The wine soaked through her hair, down her cheeks, onto her dress. It stained the lace crimson, like blood blooming in white snow. Then Brandon reached into his jacket and dropped a folder in her lap. Thick, heavy, stamped, court summons. She blinked in horror. No, Brandon, no, please, you can't. I'm suing you for corporate embezzlement, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and defamation, he said calmly. All charges are backed by evidence. All evidence has been cross-verified by legal. You will lose. Tears streamed down her face. I'll go to jail. He didn't deny it. She crawled toward him, grabbing his pant leg. Please, I'll pay it back. I'll do anything. I didn't mean to hurt you. He looked down at her like a man who had already buried the past. You did hurt me, but that's not why I'm doing this. She froze. Then why? Because I gave you a kingdom, he said quietly, and you spat on it to chase a jester in stolen shoes. She broke down sobbing, forehead to the marble floor. I loved you. You loved what I gave you, he said. Now, go return it. He turned away and began to walk. Behind him, she stayed crumpled like a child lost in the ruins of her own empire. I can't breathe. This was cinema. President Wang just served a 5-course meal of revenge. From simp to executioner, this is male fantasy peak. The door shut behind him with a final echo. The verdict came down on a rainy Tuesday. Anna Liu, guilty on all charges, sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for corporate fraud, embezzlement, and falsifying executive documents. The courtroom had been silent when the judge spoke. No gasps, no screams, not even from Anna herself. She just stood there, face pale, eyes vacant, as if some part of her still believed Brandon would show up last second, sweep in with a pardon, take her hand, whisper that it had all been some twisted test, but Brandon never showed, and even if he had, he wouldn't have come to save her. He would have come to watch her fall. As the guards cuffed her wrists, the reporters outside fired questions. Flashbulbs blinded her every step to the prison van. She kept her head down. Dignity was no longer something she could fake. Inside her cell, the whispers started early. Is that really her? The woman who tried to take down Wang Group? She's the one who cried on live stream, right? Pathetic. Brandon received the update with no expression. He didn't need to celebrate. He had already won. Benjamin, on the other hand, didn't even make it to trial. A week after the wedding collapse, Anna's younger brother had shown up to Benjamin's apartment, unannounced, fists first. What followed was chaos, a shattered jaw, 3 broken ribs, and permanent spinal damage from being kicked down a flight of stairs. By the time paramedics arrived, Benjamin couldn't feel his legs. He'd spend the rest of his life in a chair, propped up by the fake charm he once used to climb beds and boardrooms. He tried to reach out to Brandon, tried to apologize. Brandon never replied. Now, Brandon's office was quieter. No more whispers, no more chaos, just efficiency, order, clean power. Rebecca sat across from him, reviewing the last of the documents from the internal audit. Her fingers moved quickly, eyes scanning legal jargon like she was reading poetry. She had never asked for a promotion, never raised her voice, but after everything, the entire company began treating her like a second in command. She deserved it. You rewrote the ending, she said quietly, not looking up. Down to the final paragraph. Brandon closed the last legal folder, placed it gently in the archive box, and leaned back. No, he replied. I just tore out the trash chapters. They didn't smile, there was no need. Outside his office window, the skyline stretched into the horizon, clean, sharp, and untouched. Sometimes, Brandon visited the prison, not often, just enough. The first time he went, Anna refused to see him. The second time, she waited in the visitors' hall, cleaned up, composed. But her eyes were dead. She didn't ask him why he came. She just sat there, hands folded, waiting. I loved you, she whispered once. Brandon sipped his coffee, didn't answer. She looked at him like a ghost might look at a god, terrified, reverent, hopeless. Do you ever think about how it all could have gone? She asked. He tilted his head. No. But we could have had everything. We did, he said coldly, and you ruined it. She tried to hold back the tears, she failed. He stood to leave. You'll come again? No. She watched him go, hands trembling. That was the last time he ever saw her. Benjamin, meanwhile, faded into digital irrelevance. He tried to start a live stream from his hospital bed, pity content, sob stories, I've changed monologues. No one watched. The bullet comments that once mocked Brandon now had no reason to speak. Anna's gone. Benjamin's done. There's nothing left to say. And so, they fell silent. The chat that once begged for tragedy, the viewers who wanted him to die just to move the plot. They had nothing left to watch. Because Brandon had taken the script and burned it. He hadn't given them a death scene. He'd given them a resurrection. In the months that followed, Brandon rebuilt the company from the ground up, no shortcuts, no sympathy hires, every executive was vetted, every contract airtight. And Rebecca? She remained by his side. No romantic tension, no manipulation. Just two people who had seen the worst in others and learned how to win quietly. One night, as he prepared to close his laptop, Rebecca placed a single file on his desk. Anonymous tip, someone trying to ghostwrite Anna's prison memoir. They want to sell her story. He glanced at the name. He smirked. Block it, he said. She nodded. Already did. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling, a rare moment of peace settling in his chest. He didn't need revenge anymore. He'd had it. The world didn't need to remember Anna Liu. Only that she was replaced. That she lost. That she begged. That she broke. Later that night, Brandon stood on his balcony, wine in hand, watching the city hum below him. There were no bullet comments now. No voices telling him to die for love. No strangers narrating his heartbreak like it was fiction. Just silence, just victory. Legend. You script. President Brandon built different.